All right, this is Jordan Menning as the evaluator and Chris Wright as the cooperating teacher for the individual professional development plan. So Chris, this is going to be similar to, excuse me, the post-conference observation where getting some reflection based on what we found with the data there, and then also some goals that you have written. So you have the individual professional development plan. You've written some goals on there. Do you just want to talk about what you've done with that and the goals there?
Yes. The main thing that we're working on with our goals, and we're actually doing this with 6th grade through 12th grade, trying to get consistency with our grading. And one of the things that we decided was we need to, instead of just going based on homework assignments, we need to have more of a quiz type grade on a more frequent basis. And some days I let the kids use their notes, some days they have to take the quiz without notes. Kind of depends on the material and what's expected throughout the lesson. But it gives us, we try to do this every 2 to 3 days, give some type of quiz. It gives us better feedback about how the students are doing and how well did that assignment really go. Because some kids may miss every problem on the assignment as you go through it, but they're not going to ask you a question. Where what we've found so far this year for myself, as I've quizzed, then I can get an idea what has the class as a group struggled with. You know, is it just one kid that misses this, or do 20 students miss the same problem? Then it's something that I need to reflect on and maybe go back and teach or explain better, change in a lesson. It allows for me to get a lot of feedback as well.
Sure. And that was one thing we found going back to our observation, finding your prior, building connections with the students' prior knowledge, and then also what's going forward. We found that was probably one of the most beneficial things of what I observed. And then the other one was the class flow of looking at getting student responses. So your goal or goals that you've written address some of that, of getting feedback from the students more on a consistent basis. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. Based on the one data set, well, based on the other data sets that we've collected, and the teaching standards that we look to address, what do you think would be a goal possibly for getting more conversation going in the classroom? I know you talked about a little bit about how to get that going last time. What are some things?
Right, and I did some of those things. We had a lesson in pre-algebra, we're doing slope, y-intercept, a lot of that stuff right now. And the other day it worked out great because I needed ordered pairs to find slopes of. So the kids that have not been communicating, I would go up to them and say, hey, I'd ask that student, I need 2 ordered pairs. And so they'd give me ordered pair. And then on the next problem, I'd pick another student, or I'd have them give me 1 ordered pair, then I'd go to another student, give me another ordered pair. And then they started having fun with it by giving me crazy big numbers and all that. I said, it doesn't matter. Then they got to see too, we don't just do this with 2s and 3s, we do it with 4,536 as one of our coordinates,
Right.
or as part of our coordinates. So it got everybody involved a little bit more, and then they try to trick you and then they find out that it didn't work.
Right.
So that was something we talked about, and I've been doing that, and it was fun, and it got everybody involved, and it went well.
Right. That's what I'd like to see over from some data that you collect as well in the classroom of saying, okay, I know that I'm getting the students engaged, and maybe through some tally marks of, okay, these students have responded, and then multiple observations throughout by the end of the school year saying, okay, these are ones that I can come in and observe, and then we can look at that data to see how the class flow is going with that. We talked last time about standard 5D and 6C, and it talked just about the implementation of procedures and routines for the classroom. So I think if you are okay with that, that would be something to focus around those teaching standards, and you talked a little bit about you're starting to implement that already. Would you agree with that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, that's, you explained it.
What do you think would be most beneficial for the students in setting the goal for that class flow, that class collaboration? You touched on that briefly.
The big thing is, and we've talked about this as well, the dynamic of the class is interesting because some days I'll have students that may not say anything, and then the next day they'll come in and they'll answer 4 or 5 questions, and it's like they just make a decision. Today I'm going to answer questions, and then the next day they don't. And it's weird how that, because usually in your classes, the same kids want to keep answering questions. So you got to try and work your way around. But every once in a while you'll get someone that, I don't know if they had a cup of coffee in the morning or what, but it's just a difference. But the big thing is through the quizzes, through trying to have them just give me a number, just so they have to speak. A yes or no question, or something that's simple that even if you get it wrong, it's not a big deal, or something that they can't get wrong. Things like that are the things that I try to do to get all of them participating.
So what do you think will be needed to show that you've met your goals that you set?
It's going to be hard this year because this is the first year we've done the assessment, the quizzes, stuff like that. I think we're really going to find out next year, and when I can talk with the Algebra 1 teacher and say, how are these kids retaining the information we went over? Because the goal, hopefully, is they're retaining it better as well. They're getting more reps with it. Also, I'll have been through it, so hopefully I do a better job with my pre-algebra kids next year. And what I want to do then is I can kind of start comparing test scores.
Sure.
You know, granted, they're different groups, so it's not exactly apples to apples, but it does give me an idea, hey, last year the group did really well on this test. Is this group going to do as well? You know, or did we do better now? Because maybe I'll change a quiz, maybe I'll add in an extra quiz, maybe I'll add in a different type of assessment. This is still kind of new to us, so it's a process that we may not get immediately. I think it's really helped the students. I think test scores have been better this year compared to previous years, but I'd have to go in and do a lot of stat stuff to really get the details.
Do you think comparing data for the class flow, the students' responses within the class, comparing that data to the test data or the quiz data would be meaningful at all, or to see if there would be correlation?
It can be, and this was a topic my student teacher and I talked about when I had her in here. She said, we had a student that answered question after question after question, got everything right, I mean, was just rolling, and then just did okay on the test. And we were baffled by that. Because he, I mean, even through the review, it just, I mean, was flying through it. So I don't know what happened on that test day. We had someone else that kind of struggled, did this, and did awesome on the test. And we were just talking about that interesting dynamic of sometimes you don't really know. Typically, the students that can answer the questions that can do that do well on the tests as well. But we did have one where, because my student teacher brought that up, and she goes, can I ask you about something? And that was really weird for her. And I said, I don't know if there's an explanation, but yeah, typically that's what we have is class participation, more of it lends to it. Sometimes you have that real quiet kid that is paying attention, that's soaking it all in, that gets it. They just don't like offering up answers. So you have that too.
So what would be a reasonable timeline to say, let's collect some of the data for the class flow, class participation, along with then looking at the quiz scores, that assessment? How long, you touched on that, looking possibly next year. What are you thinking? Could we look at that quarterly? Could we look at it
I think
semester?
Yeah, I think we'd have enough data, especially quarterly. The better, it would probably be better to really get a good assessment of it like next year, because my quizzes will have been made, I'm able to tweak my quizzes, because sometimes you're like, okay, that didn't go as well as I want, that wasn't a good question, I want to rewrite it. So hopefully next year, everything will be fine-tuned,
Right.
and then we'll get a better view of it. And then that's where, yeah, if we can see, okay, who's answering the questions, who's doing this, and then with the quizzes, does all of that correlate?
Sure. Okay, well, let's check by the end of this academic school year, check the class flow, and you're starting the assessments, the quizzes. So let's check at that at the end of the school year, compare that data, and then starting next year, we can look at setting those goals. What would be a percentage would you say you'd want students to participate in class? As far as the class flow, saying, yes, I want 100% of the students to be able to answer one question throughout class. Maybe we want at least 90% participation in class. What would be a number would you say would be?
Well, yeah, obviously you'd love to have the 100%.
Right.
You can get it if you have the kids basically develop all the questions. Like I explained earlier, okay, I need to find slope, so-and-so I need a number. As long as that would be considered a participation thing,
Right.
then
Yep.
you can go there. If you
Right.
do it as where they have to answer a question or do a problem on the board or something like that, then I think that percentage is gonna drop.
Right.
Because without putting kids on the spot and making them feel insecure, because some kids, again, we talked, and that was the first thing we talked about this year, was
Right.
just class dynamic. What do we have? What don't we have?
Right.
And so, question-wise, I would say I'd like to be able to have, 3/4 of it, 75%, where they will at least answer a question that I ask.
Right.
As far as class participation, that can be higher. And
So if we
some
could shoot for,
lessons, some lessons lend better to that than others,
Right.
but
Okay, so if we could shoot maybe for like 90% class participation within questioning, answering questions, and also whatever maybe they're doing on the board throughout classwork, that type of thing. So I think that will be good. We'll put that in as one of your goals as well. Anything else as far as timeline needed to reach your goal? Do you feel pretty confident with the goals that you've set?
I do, and even right now, I like what we're doing. I've talked with the other math teachers, they like what we're doing. But all of us have said we need to get through this year, get into it next year again, and then from our side, just really analyze, okay, I've got everything kind of set up. I know how it's gonna work now. I know what I'm looking at. And it's gotten better as the year's gone on. So I'm gonna have to go back to some of that first quarter stuff from this past year
Right.
and possibly revamp some of that. Okay, did I do this right? Do I need to change it? So just what it's done is lended to a lot of reflection on our part as a math group, which is good. And sometimes you get stuck in your rut, so changing things up a little bit, I think, has been good for us.
Good. Well, we'll look at that. We'll go from the data. We'll meet again at the end of this academic school year, and then we'll look at setting those goals for next year. So,
Sounds good.
all right. Thank you.